This is the crazy story of Queen Elizabeth II. Not the person, but the cruise ship. A world-famous vessel that survived against all odds, through wars, terror attacks, and even some consequential royal slip-ups here and there. From its inception, this ship was really never meant to succeed. Yet somehow it did. Let's delve into it. To understand how this ship became one of the world's most iconic vessels, we first have to go back in time. The 1960s to be specific. Cunard Line, England's biggest shipping company, is in deep trouble. Jets are starting to take over the transatlantic route, and within a decade Cunard lost most of its passengers, reducing their fleet size from 11 to just 3. This is real bad, and if nothing changes, they'll go bankrupt in no time. So they made one final big bet. The construction of Q4, an unnamed ship that would become the world's fastest, most luxurious, and most modern ocean liner. This was supposed to be the ship that not only saves Cunard, but the whole industry. And in a way, it did, just not how you'd expect it to. When September 20th, 1967 came around, it was launch day. Queen Elizabeth II was personally invited to tour the vessel before announcing its name to the public for the very first time.
Months earlier, it had been agreed the ship would be named the Queen Elizabeth, after the existing liner, not the monarch. What happened next did nothing to ease the atmosphere.
When the Queen came to name the ship, she was handed a card with the name on, although she knew perfectly well what the name was, and she waved it to one side.
I name this ship Queen Elizabeth II.
She actually named the ship after herself.
It was not the name Cunard, or anyone else, was expecting.
Yes, the Queen actually named the ship after herself, which wasn't the agreed upon name. But there's not much Cunard could do about it after the announcement was made, and so they just had to deal with it. In 1969, the ship was finally completed and went on its maiden voyage under its new official name, Queen Elizabeth II. Yet it wasn't smooth sailing from there. The QE2 had frequent mechanical problems, leading to bad PR and an occupancy rate of only 65%, which is horrible, meaning Cunard could barely break even with occupational costs, let alone make any profit. The ship that was supposed to save Cunard is somehow accelerating its downfall, until everything changed. See, while transatlantic voyages were losing demand, this up-and-coming industry named cruising was quickly gaining traction. And so Cunard decided to focus more on cruising, and the Queen Elizabeth II, with its modern look, pristine elegance, and incredible service, quickly became the most popular vessel in the industry. Literally everyone wanted to sail on Earth, from George H.W. Bush to Nelson Mandela to the Beatles, Princess Diana, Elton John, Buzz Aldrin, David Bowie, and anyone else you can imagine. I mean, the list literally keeps going. Even the Queen herself went on a cruise once, becoming the first monarch to ever sail on a passenger vessel. And that means something. But it wasn't all just fun and games. Being one of the most iconic vessels of its time, it also quickly became a target. Muammar Gaddafi, Libya's dictator at the time and a known sponsor of terrorist activities, ordered his navy to torpedo the ship, which was on its way to a port in Israel. Only when the Egyptian military and a British naval ship intervened did he back down. This incident was followed by a couple of bomb threats here and there, and even a deployment to war. But like throughout her history, the vessel showed resilience, and while most other vessels sank during the war, she survived. Queen Elizabeth II continued sailing for over 40 years, 806 transatlantic voyages, and over 2.5 million passengers. But all good stories have to come to an end. Or do they? In 2008, the ship has become the longest-serving vessel in Cunard's history, and it was starting to show its age, especially compared to those new cruise ships sailing the world. So Cunard decided to sell it, and surprisingly, offers for the ship came flooding in from all over. From scrapyards to the city of London to Liverpool to South Africa, Asia and beyond, everyone wanted a piece of this historic vessel. But ultimately, a company from Dubai made the winning bid of $100 million, 5 times its construction cost. So, the ship went on its final voyage to Dubai, where it sits to this day as a hotel, museum, and nightclub.
You see the drippy, I'm fitted up. Hop in my car and the giddy up. Secure the bag, yeah, I get the bus. Pick it up, pick it up, pick it up. You see the drippy, I'm fitted up.
Yes, the historic QE2, named after the Queen herself, was turned into the world's largest floating nightclub. So of course, I had to check it out. Just approaching this ship feels quite surreal. See, it doesn't quite fit in. This is Dubai after all, the ultra-modern city where bigger is better. But once inside the ship, the confusion grows. Don't get me wrong, this ship is stunning. You have atriums, theaters, and lounges that still look exactly like they did 50 years ago. And in some parts, it still looks like a Cunard ship, like the Queen Elizabeth II. But at the same time, other parts look more like an abandoned cargo ship, or a bankrupt hotel. Move up one deck and you're back in action in a luxurious cruise ship style buffet. Move up one more and you're in an ultra-modern, high-tech nightclub, although you can still see the traditional red Cunard funnel in the background. It's this mixture of modern takes and historic relics that make walking around a bit confusing. You don't know if you're on a modern cruise ship, the Titanic, an antiquated wedding hall, or an abandoned hotel. There's just a bit of everything. And I think it's good that way. While some Cunard loyalists were extremely upset when they found out a nightclub had been placed on board, I feel like that's better than the alternative. Just look at the SS United States, probably the most well-known ocean liner that's not called the Titanic. It's just laying there idle in Philadelphia, slowly rusting away. If commercializing a vessel is necessary to make sure it's not scrapped and turned into metal, I think that's a pretty good deal. It allows a ship that's way surpassed its lifetime to continue to live on just a little bit longer, allowing future generations to experience a living ocean liner and maybe even remember the longest serving British monarch of all time. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed, consider subscribing and helping us reach our 50,000 subscriber goal for this year. Also check out our second channel where I blindfold my best friend and surprise him with a trip halfway around the world. It's worth a visit. Thanks, and as always, keep cruising. I let an AI fully plan a mystery trip and then blindfolded my best friend halfway around the world. Here's what happened. You're